There is a vast and broad universe beyond our world, trillions of galaxies that we are aware of, potentially an infinite number more. And each of those galaxies possess billions to trillions of stars, and among those stars, multiple trillions of planets. One would think there would be life beyond our Earth. And, as we understand life, the universe has been habitable for some 10 billion years. In so vast a universe, with so many worlds that have had so long to develop and evolve, there must be others with Earth-like conditions, others that could harbor life. But if so, where are their voices? How come we do not hear them? How come when we turn our best telescopes and radio telescopes to the sky, all that they encounter is the silent static of a wilderness, vast beyond comprehension? It has been said that if a civilization arose elsewhere in the universe that developed technology to fare the stars, they could have colonized much of the galaxy in a few million years, even traveling only a fraction of the speed of light. This might sound like a great deal of time, but in the span of the universe, it is only a yawn. And others speculate that civilizations with technology far beyond our own would be hungry for power, so hungry they would encapsulate entire stars and galaxies with Dyson spheres to absorb their energy, and we should be able to detect these civilizations by their residual heat. But still, when SETI turns its telescopes to the stars and listens, silence. So one must ask, where are they? Where are the voices of that other life and those other intelligences that must lie beyond the bounds of our own planet Earth? All we have at this time are guesses, albeit educated guesses, but guesses nonetheless. But I suspect the nature of our own world holds the answer, for our Earth is filled with intelligences, wonderful and alien, and different from our own. And in seeking to understand their lives and their perspectives, we might find in them the answer to the riddle of the Fermi Paradox. We humans have the fault of being an incredibly anthropocentric species. We tend to think all of it, all of creation, exists for us. This is reflected in our religions. God made the world in 6 days, but He did it for Adam and Eve, and ultimately us. And it is reflected in our industries, where everything, in land, sea, and sky, is a resource to benefit our economies. And our anthropocentric viewpoint is even reflected in our educational and philosophical systems of thought, in which we are the intelligent species. We are the standard of measure. It is a bizarre conundrum, this idea of intelligence. Yes, it is without doubt that we humans are incredibly clever at making gadgets, whether that gadget is a nifty iPhone that can send a lot of text messages, photos, and play some pointless games, or a skyscraper, or a dam across a river that produces power. We tend to be very good at bending the world to our will and sharing our ideas via our mode of spoken language. But the things that we are good at come at an incredible cost. Our intelligence brings us global warming, world wars, terrorism, Fukushima and Chernobyl, and every form of air, water, and earth pollution that we can imagine. If we are an intelligent species, in many ways our intelligence backfires, for it succeeds primarily at destroying the world round about us. But this very earth is filled with creatures that display high intelligence as well, and they do not wreak the destruction that we do. Wolves, for example, are social animals that are extremely intelligent, and countless studies have shown that their activities are beneficial to the world around them, balancing herbivores to the landscape so that the land is not overtaxed and forests and biodiversity can flourish. Whales sing songs of lengthy beauty, communicating with their kin across distances that would span continents. Cetaceans, such as dolphins, are extremely intelligent and pass tests for self-awareness even earlier than human children do. It is scientifically demonstrable and beyond doubt that this world is filled with highly intelligent creatures. But we anthropocentric humans tend to disregard them, for their intelligence is not like ours. They do not display gadgets, nor present spoken language, at least not as we understand it. No, very often their language is of a subtlety and sophistication that far surpasses even the elegance and beauty of the spoken or written word. The quest for intelligent life beyond our star is rooted in the assumption that that intelligence will function much like ours. But what is intelligence? Known in the realm of psychology as the G factor, or just G. The definition of intelligence is a divisive issue among academics and researchers, and to this day no one has been able to quite agree on what it is, nor exactly how to measure it. In fact, even the best IQ tests, such as the Wechsler intelligence scales, tell us very little, because it is unknown just what differences the results of such tests might make in an individual's life. If we look at it through the anthropocentric lens, intelligence is the human-based ability to use verbal language, in both spoken and written forms, to be imaginative and motivated, and create things such as literature, novels, as well as non-fiction works, and to alter the environment in such a way that we consider more desirable. But the human lens is a narrow perspective. It is now well accepted that animals present considerable intelligence. There are many species that are undeniably self-aware, have language that directs their social interactions, and they coordinate their social activities and even adjust and adapt to changes in their environments. All the things by which we define intelligence. But these features are not just limited to animals. Plants also display amazing intelligence. They are demonstrably aware of their kin. Though they are sessile or cannot move, they do move as individuals within the spaces allotted to them by their root systems, and they use this movement continuously to adjust to their environment and even make space for one another. And within the last 20 years, it has been discovered that plants communicate a great deal, partly by pheromones upon the wind, but more significantly, and especially in forests, through vast networks of underground fungi. Not only do they communicate through these networks, but they share nutrients and water, as well as information on how to defeat would-be pathogens. In fact, it can be reasonably argued that between the various kingdoms of life on this planet, plants may well be the most advanced. They form over 95% of the planet's biomass. And if humans have great cities, plants have their own equivalent in vast prairies, arid ecosystems, but most notably, the enormous forests now reduced but which once covered the continents of the world. A forest is, to plants and animals, the equivalent of a city to humans. Though, if we are going to define intelligence as an ability to adapt successfully to the environment, we would have to deem plants more intelligent than humans, because while our cities cover the planet, from sea to land in vast quantities of pollution, and fill the air with carbon, the work of forests is beneficial to the planet and improves the environment for every member of Earth's ecosystem, removing carbon from the air, which cools the planet and secondarily mitigates the acidification of the oceans. Forests arrest erosion and lead to the retention of soil, and trees, acting cooperatively within the vast networking of a forest, are even able to regulate the atmosphere, creating cool air beneath the canopy of their boughs through the transpiration of water from underneath the ground to the atmosphere, thereby promoting a healthier growing environment not only for the trees, but everything that shares the woodlands. Indeed, we humans may be very clever at manipulating our environment, but there can be no doubt that the plants that share this world with us, and who have done so for hundreds of millions of years, whereas our species has barely been around for the blink of an eye in evolutionary scales, are far more capable of long-term, wise, and sustainable use of their environment. And this is a form of intelligence for which we humans show little aptitude. Indeed, we can barely restrain ourselves from destroying the very environment we require to live. If we compare and contrast the historical models of human intelligence, which is capable of altering its environment without real consideration, nor any ability to really stop or even much mitigate the consequences, against that of the intelligence that we see in nature, especially in plants, we might find significant clues to help us answer the mystery of the Fermi Paradox. Much of the quest for extraterrestrial life is built around looking for species that would consume and overuse much like we humans do. But the models of nature, and in particular plants, show us that species that have depth intelligence, that is intelligence that would allow them to survive over broad expanses of time, millions or even billions of years, not only do not abuse their environments, but improve them. Plants here on Earth, for example, applying the collective intelligence that they can share by way of their underground mycelial networks, collaborate to improve their environment at all levels, from soil to the water and to the air above. And trees can even work together to lower atmospheric pressure, drawing humidity, and can seed that humidity to make rain. These are amazing accomplishments. We humans, applying all of our vaunted intelligence, cannot really do any of those things effectively. We can change the local environment within our structures. We have some limited capacity to redirect water by way of building dams, and we're able to construct tools to amuse and inform us. But unfortunately, most of those machinations end up making our world worse by way of pollution and disruption of natural systems. But when you factor in our own endless need for power, and our willingness to obtain it despite any cost such as by burning fossil fuels, and the construction of risky devices such as nuclear power plants, and the destruction of entire rivers by way of dams, we see the true failures of our kind of intelligence. Indeed, our intelligence seems to be something quite different from depth intelligence. We humans possess a brief intelligence. We wreak a great deal of destruction with our world, and we seem to perpetually be attempting to outrun the problems that are set loose by our intelligence, such as pollution, erosion, famine, and overpopulation. I think if anything, the broad range of life here on Earth and the many environments it is capable of surviving in shows us that there are probably many other planets with life beyond our world, and among them there are probably many intelligent creatures. For if we just look here at Earth, with eyes open to the nature of intelligence beyond our narrow version of it, we can see that our own world is filled with intelligent beings. But if they have been around for longer than the evolutionary blink of an eye, that is the human scale of existence, they must undoubtedly possess depth intelligence. This would mean that they would be very hard to detect, because they would not be resource crazy, nor power hungry. They would not destroy their own home worlds in a desperate attempt to always get more. They would find no reason to attempt the absurd risk of encapsulating their sun with a Dyson sphere or Dyson swarm out of a vast need for power. The stars are far apart, and they would know this, and they would make use of what they have locally right within their own star systems. And the evolution of our own technologies right here on Earth has taught us that as many technologies become more mature, they also become more power efficient. Thus, I think it is likely that if there are truly alien intelligences beyond our world that have existed for vast spans of time, they have made peace with what their own environments have to offer. And in terms of power, they live within their means. Some SETI scientists look for Dyson spheres by examining the skies for their residual heat, but such intelligences would make no such heat, for they would need no Dyson spheres, and it is unlikely they would risk polluting their own land masses with nuclear power or destroying their own atmospheres with carbon-burning fuels. So they would not leave traces, at least not the kinds of traces that we're presently looking for. Nature has also taught us that there are many other ways to communicate, many very powerful and efficient ways beyond the spoken word. Indeed, the neurons within our own brains use organically generated electrochemical signals, along with chemical neurotransmitters, to convey information that allows for the complex networking between our neurons that creates consciousness. It can well and truly be said that similar networking goes on between trees, for through the fungal network that runs among their roots, chemical and electrical impulses circulate, carrying in-depth information about the world around the trees and every forest, and enabling forests to control and carefully manipulate their own environments to ensure not only their survival, but the survival of the species that share those forests with them. As noted earlier, whales communicate across vast distances through their haunting, echoing songs. Cetaceans possess the ability of echolocation and use sound to create complex pictures within their minds, and somehow, in ways we do not yet understand, share such information between each other. Do dolphins convey pictures to one another through their chirps and chitters? Even dance is a powerful means of communication, as bees have taught us. We humans, on the other hand, are very dependent on sound for communication through our spoken words. We are also very visually oriented, and a huge portion of the human brain is devoted to processing visual spatial information. But words are relatively simple spoken memes that carry ideas, and vision is a form of imagery conveyed by light. Both can be emulated with relative ease through the use of various electromagnetic technologies, such as digital recorders and cameras. This means such information that humans use to communicate practically begs to be broadcast through radio waves. It works for we humans, but for many organisms, such as bees with their dances, or cetaceans that are confined to water, or trees which communicate through a means much like thought with direct electrochemical interactions, it is not so convenient to use electromagnetic formats to hold and broadcast information. Indeed, for intelligent creatures such as whales, which can sing their songs to one another across hundreds, even thousands of miles, the idea of creating something like a radio broadcaster simply might not occur, as it would be alien to their way of thinking, because, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. We only think to invent things when we recognize a need. Intelligences beyond our star, possessing other means to communicate and understand the world, likewise might never think to turn to anything like radios, if for nothing else than they simply might not have a need, or that their means of perception and communication would not easily lend itself to electromagnetic conveyance, and thus they would never generate the kinds of signals that we might be looking for here on Earth. What I am saying is that I don't think the Fermi Paradox exists due to a lack of life or intelligence beyond the bounds of our world. Indeed, when one considers the basic math, that there are likely trillions, even quadrillions of worlds throughout the universe, and among them millions, perhaps billions of Earth-like worlds, at least some of which must hold life, I think it is also very certain that on some of those worlds there is also going to be intelligence. But sadly, it is likely that human intelligence is a brief intelligence, for the way that we think and implement our technologies seems to lead us to destroy another little piece of the world for every accomplishment we manage. So intelligences like ours that would leave ready and loud signals are not likely to be detected on the simple basis that they shortly lead to their own extinction. But intelligences of depth, organisms that have been around for millions and billions of years, I think are unlikely to generate waste heat, waste radio waves, or many of the other signs that we presently associate with intelligence and are currently looking for. Indeed, I tend to think that the more intelligent a species is, the less likely one would be to ever be able to spot its footprint upon its world at all, even if one were to have a probe orbiting directly over its atmosphere. For depth intelligence is not likely to scar its own planet. It would take care of its world and fit harmoniously in. In other words, the model of life on our world subtly indicates that the universe is likely to contain many other kinds of intelligent creatures, but their intelligence may well be so alien to our own way of understanding that we wouldn't recognize it even if we saw it, in the same way that the intelligence of trees was long overlooked. And any beings that would survive across deep time would be those of depth intelligence. Thus, they would be almost impossible to detect. Our star system could be surrounded by intelligent life, and yet we'd have no way ever to know. Or maybe it's not so bleak as that. Maybe we could find them one day. Maybe, if we as humans can come to think more as creatures of depth intelligence, we would not only survive longer, we might find a way to detect and perhaps even communicate with those beings light years from our own Mother Earth. After all, it was not even 3 decades ago that no one in their right minds would have believed that trees share thoughts through a vast network of fungi beneath their roots, would have pondered the realistic possibility that trees might dream, or considered that they can create clouds, lower atmospheric pressure, and draw down rain by bending their minds to the same purpose. But maybe I'm an optimist or a romantic, for I believe that if trees have the power to shape the weather, then we humans, new to this universe as we are, also may be able to accomplish great things. We indeed are great explorers and good communicators in our own particular way. Maybe it is our purpose in the grand scheme of things to apply our peculiar kind of intelligence, which for all its faults has the ability to reach out and understand the stars, to find a way to connect all life, here and beyond. Thank you for watching. The Naturalist program is committed to the reliable coverage of all matter of topics relating to natural science, from ecology and conservation to the nature of the universe beyond our Earth, and making that information practical with solid advice on living well with the natural world. If you appreciate the program, please take a moment to subscribe. Subscribing costs nothing and never will, but it sure helps a lot.